We've got to do the urinary system, reproductive system. We'll take our lab exam on for that on the 2nd, for the 3rd. I don't know what day that's actually. Is that right?
Okay.
Yeah. 2nd.
It's gonna be the 5th of May.
Tuesday's the 5th?
Oh, no, it's the 3rd. Sorry. I thought you meant Thursday.
Okay. And that is something that we can talk about, okay? Because I do have a class that will take it on Thursday. Would y'all just all like to take it on Thursday to give you a couple more days of study?
Yes.
No worries.
Could anybody not do that?
Wait, wouldn't that not make sense since there's only a certain amount of tables?
Yeah, but there's only like a few people in that class.
Oh.
There's like 8.
Is that all the extra people in our lectures?
Yes.
Oh.
That's all the other people. So,
Yeah.
let's go with that right now. Tentatively remind me to say that in lecture today, and make sure that everybody can do that. But that way, that gives everybody an extra day to go through it beforehand, and I don't have to set it up on time. Then that makes me happy. Okay, so
If we want Mr. Happy.
that's
So
right.
we are having a, you say we are having a lab exam May 2nd, April 2nd?
Is it probably would be the 4th.
May, that would be May, right?
Yes. Actually, probably the 4th. Okay, and then that means from the lecture standpoint, this week we got to finish digestion. Okay? We got next week metabolism. Okay? Then we've got on Thursday, I figured, right? Digestion and metabolism test.
Yes.
Okay? And then we got to do urinary, because hopefully I'll finish metabolism here. We'll start urinary. Then urinary, we got urinary and reproduction, and then we'll take on the week of finals, we'll take our 4th exam. And then if you wanted to do the comprehensive exam, you can do that after we finish that.
Same day.
Same day.
Okay.
Okay?
Are you doing the same thing you did like last semester where our comp is if our comprehensive final was higher than our lowest grade, you'll replace that?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And why do I do that? Because I love y'all, right? Because I love y'all. That's all.
Are we sure?
Yes, I am. I don't know about y'all, but I'm sure.
When there is a doubt, we resolve it in our favor.
Well, it's when there is a doubt, right? Okay,
Yeah, he was coffee.
so. Rebecca, could you do it on Thursday instead of Tuesday? Lab?
At 10.
Yes. Okay. So we're still good. All right, so that's our plan. Y'all take a picture of this if you want to. Okay, so what we're talking about, how far have we gotten in lecture on the digestive system? Because I don't remember.
We covered the teeth and I think part of the stomach.
Okay, so we're getting down to where we're starting the actual good stuff, okay? We did talk about the esophagus, and remember the esophagus was the tube between the pharynx up here, right, and the stomach. And the goal for this was not to do much in the way of digestion at all. It's really just a tube for carrying it, and that tube that's going to carry it is going to be with smooth muscle, right? It's a smooth muscle tube, circular longitudinal smooth muscle, and we need a lot of protection with this organ, okay? Because what we're swallowing could have fish bones in it, could have Doritos that are real sharp, that we didn't chew up real well or something like that, right? So, a lot of protection. So when we look at the esophagus under the microscope, it says the mucosa here, stratified squamous epithelium. I made y'all little cards. Got here early, made y'all cards. So, mucosa, stratified squamous epithelium, and then I need you to be aware of the circular and longitudinal smooth muscle. Okay? So when you look at it, take a picture of it, label it, whatever, okay? Then we go down to the stomach, okay? When we talk about the stomach is a big organ in the digestive system, but it's not the end-all, be-all organ, okay? It's not number one in my book, okay? It's a big holding vat for the food that we eat, okay? We eat a lot of it, then we can go rest up and digest it, right? So it holds on to this for a while. And if things get bad, we can move around, stop the digestion, leave it in the stomach for quite a while, and then when things are better, then start digesting it again, okay? So the stomach is set up with gastric pits in it. And these gastric pits, I want y'all to think about as being, invaginations of, so here's where the food is inside the stomach. Okay, I'm gonna make it kind of like this. Okay, so the food's in here. So this mucosa layer that we're gonna have here is gonna have a bunch of pits in it that lead to glands that are down below. Okay, so down here are the cells that are going to produce stuff into this tube, and it's gonna make its way up here onto the surface where the food's at. Okay? Now what the stomach is making is stuff like hydrochloric acid, right? Y'all have all had probably heartburn or some type of reflux where that burning sensation that you get from the stomach acid. Okay, even throw up sometimes with that. Okay?
What causes it?
Because what?
What you just said?
Well, the acid
The
or
burning, yeah, the burning sensation.
that's, we need it. This is gonna help us digest the food, the acid. Okay? So, different things will cause you to throw up. We'll talk about that in lecture coming up. Okay? But everything is coming from these pits down here. These are called the gastric pits. Gastric or stomach pits. And what I want you to think about is it's things that are going down into the stomach. It's not stuff sticking off. Okay? Which is what we're going to see later on. Okay? It's things that are going down in. Okay? So we can see these gastric pits, and they're going to secrete things like hydrochloric acid, pepsinogen, and then when the pepsinogen hits the hydrochloric acid, it converts to pepsin, okay, which is going to break down proteins for us. Intrinsic factor is another thing that is produced here, intrinsic factor, so that we can pick up vitamin B12 later on. There's some mucus cells that are here. So there's going to be lots of things that are being secreted.
So are these all on the side of the stomach or just towards the bottom?
Kind of all around it.
All around
All
the
around.
stomach? Okay.
Yeah, all around. Okay, so, make sure that we know these, because we're gonna have to know these also for lecture. Okay, the secretions, and I put it there with that. So that's what we got next, the stomach. And then we go to the small intestine, okay? And I'm gonna do, the part of the small intestine I picked this time is called the jejunum. It's the middle part. And once we get to the small intestine, it is all about absorption. Okay? Now this is probably the number one organ that we're going to deal with here. Okay? Of the digestive system would be the small intestine. Because we're going to do a lot of the digestion and most of the absorption here. Okay? Most of the absorption and tremendous amount of digestion. Okay? So when we look at the small intestine, if we want to increase absorption, how can we make it easier to absorb things? Go back to the respiratory system. What do we do to make it us able to get more oxygen in from the lungs? What were the things that we could work on? There were three things.
Frequency.
What?
Frequency.
How fast we did it. So the amount that was across there, that was one.
Increase surface area.
Surface area. And that's what we're going to do again with this one, surface area. Tremendous surface area for absorption. Okay? Now, we're in a tube. If you think about it, the small intestine's a tube. Now that sucks. That's surface area. That's the worst surface area you can have. Okay? In fact, the worst is a ball. That is the worst surface to volume ratio of anything. Okay? There's the least surface area with the most stuff inside of it. Okay? That's why if it's cold outside, what do? We say, oh, it's cold outside. Let's expose my surface area to more cold. No, we go, it's cold outside. We turn into a ball, right? We ball up as little as we can. Okay? That exposes less of our surface area and maximizes the volume this way. So that's what we want to do. We want to go the other way. We want it to be like this for absorption. Okay? So let's increase absorption. Here's the first way we're going to do it. We're going to use columnar cells that have that brush border on it. We said, what were the little finger-like things that are on it?
Zilla.
not cilia, because cilia wave. This is for absorption. This was the
Villi?
microvilli. Good, microvilli. Okay? Is that going to increase the absorption that that cell can do? Yeah, okay. Now, since it's in a circle like this, how can we increase the absorptive surface area?
Put it all the way around the circle.
Okay? Let's make fingers stick off. Okay? Just like the villi, but let's make fingers, big fingers come off. So on this, if I have a finger like this, that on the surface of it has my simple columnar epithelium with all the microvilli on it here. Am I getting a lot more surface area now? Yeah. Okay? And then we're gonna do one more thing, y'all. 3 times we're gonna do it. Now, let's put these fingers on big flaps, big hills and valleys. Okay? So, inside of it, we're gonna have structures that do this, that have fingers on it. And on the fingers, they're gonna have microvilli.
So this is inside that middle part of the small intestine.
Exactly.
They're like, it's not the ones that were waiting, they just kinda like,
Yes, right. We call these the plaquette. Okay? And I'm gonna
So
try
the
to show you.
plaquette has villi, right, on it?
So, imagine this, we've got a mountain, right? We've got a mountain, that's the plaquette. And then on the mountain, we've got a bunch of trees. That's gonna be the villi. And the trees are all pine trees, so they all have those little spiny projections sticking off. That's gonna be our microvilli. That's pretty impressive, right? So we get a tremendous amount of surface area here. So here, in the small intestine, it's all about absorption, okay? And we can see that on the slide real well. Then we move to the colon. When we get to the large intestine, we're done absorption, mostly, okay? It's all about retaking back water now, because we've been adding tons and tons of water in this. We all know what happens if we don't take back the water, okay? It's called diarrhea. And I mean, not the just loose diarrhea, I mean the water that's coming out of you, like you did one of those preps for a colonoscopy type thing, right? I mean, it gets everywhere. It splatters, gets on your hiney when you're going to the bathroom, right? That kind of thing, okay? Water is what I'm talking about. That's what we got. And that's important for it to be that way because we need to keep it in solution, okay? But now it's time to get all the water back, and that's what the colon does. So it starts taking the water back, and with it, it takes back some of the good stuff, that bile that's left over, we can reuse that and that kind of stuff, okay? We'll talk about it. But as we're losing the water, what must we do to the inside of the colon to make sure that there's no loss of cells and that kind of stuff as we're removing the water? Now we need a lot of mucus, okay? And the goblet cells are going to be the ones that are going to be involved here. The goblet cells are going to produce mucus that's going to slide this feces, compacted feces, right? And we've all had it stay in there a little too long, and it's a little harder to get out, where you're a little bit compacted, a little bit constipated, right? And little kids are notorious for this. They'll go outside, they don't want to come in from doing what they're doing. They have to go to the bathroom, they'll do the poopy dance, you'll watch them, they're squeezing their butt cheeks together outside. You know they gotta go to the bathroom because then after a few minutes, it's gonna pass, right? That urge passes, and they stay out there. Well, that was the urge, you needed to go to the bathroom. We're saying, okay, it's ready, but we're gonna keep taking the water away anyway. So if they stay out there and play a couple more hours, they're 98.6 degrees running around, we're sucking the water away. They're pretty much baking a brick inside of them now, okay? So when it comes time for them to go to the bathroom, it's a lot harder. We have that feeling of constipation, okay? So the mucus cells are gonna be important here, okay? We want to slide this along. It's gonna become abrasive. It's gonna be gritty because that's what's left over. And we want it to slide out, Okay, and we know this because that's why we have toilet paper, right? Is to wipe up the other stuff that got stuck in there, right? This grittiness that's stuck to it, and that mucus that's there. Okay, so
May I ask
that's
a
what the
question?
colon's about.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
You said something about the water, you need water, and you talk about diarrhea. At what stage do you need water? And because if you go to if you go to do the thing and you have diarrhea, there's cause for concern, right?
Sure.
So I didn't get it really when I was listening to the lecture. What causes the diarrhea? I know it has to do with something about water, and I don't know how it will be stopped. And I don't think I got it now while you're still explaining.
So diarrhea is, we are not in homeostasis if you have diarrhea. That's
Yeah.
first rattle out. You're not in homeostasis, something's wrong, and there's lots of reasons for this to occur. It can be as simple as stress a lot of times, where it has involved the digestive system. There's nerves that are involved where you don't take back enough of the water.
Which water now?
The
What
water that is inside the colon,
You
okay?
don't take it back into your system, is that what you mean?
Correct. Okay, so if you think about what vomit looks like, right? Okay, we drink a lot of water when we eat it, right? So when we throw up, it's a lot more liquid than what my dog throws up. Y'all seen an animal throw up? Because they don't drink while they're eating, right? There's this, when mine eats too much and she throws up, she goes, "Bleh," and it's this, and you can pretty much go over there with a paper towel a lot of times and pick the whole thing up with very little of it attached. There's a little scrubbing that's got to be done. If I throw up, we're probably going to have to remove the carpet now, right? Because that's just going to be gross. Okay? So we have a lot more fluid. Then we add fluid from the pancreas into this, from the intestines, we add more fluid. So we constantly are adding fluid into the tube to make it nice and liquidy so that we can keep it in solution. Okay? Because we've got to get it up against, if it's in this tube, okay, and we've got all of these little flaps and things along the outside of it, how do we get the good stuff that's in here? We've got to have it in fluid, and we got to keep mixing it up. So we keep squeezing it, and pretty much stirring it. That way, as we're absorbing it, we get to have new materials coming in contact with it constantly. Okay?
Are the microvilli responsible? Do each microvilli have a responsibility, like picking up calcium, picking up iron? Like, does
They're
that?
not specific to a particular microvilli.
Okay.
So there are all kinds of protein receptors that are going to be moving stuff in for us. Diffusion's going to work. It's all those things that we've learned before.
Okay.
Okay? Okay. So there is a ton of fluid that we take back in the colon. Okay? A ton of fluid that we take back in the colon. If we have to prep for a colonoscopy, that drug, that magnesium citrate that they give you to take, what it does is aggravate the intestinal lining of the colon, where you don't want to do reabsorption. You don't want to take the water back. And it comes out in copious amounts of fluid then. Okay? And you clean yourself out that way. Okay? So lots of things cause the diarrhea. Okay? From toxins, chemicals, all kinds of things.
Is it possible to like dehydrate yourself from too much?
Absolutely. Little babies and older adults, this is something we really have to watch with them. Yeah, diarrhea can be fatal, okay? Because you're losing a ton of water. So, and elderly people don't have that thirst response that that you kind of lose it as you get older, where you don't feel thirsty, okay? All right, so the colon full of goblet cells, and you'll see that, okay? Then there are two accessory organs that we got to deal with. One is the pancreas, one's the liver. The pancreas has a bunch of these cells on the outside that are called Acini cells, okay? And they're more larger cells like this. I'm going to draw it. They're more cellular. And then you'll find small areas where there are little pockets of cells that are not as cellular. I use the term peppery. They look peppery to me. It looks like somebody's put some pepper out there. They're smaller cells in this little area. There's a little bit more space between them. And it's one of those things that you have to see. You have to look at it and go, okay, now I see what they're talking about. Okay? So this would be the acini cells out here. And these are the ones that are responsible for the digestive enzymes that the pancreas makes. It makes most of the protease enzymes. 70% of them are proteolytic, meaning they break down proteins. So it's all about pancreas. A lot to do with protein digestion. Okay? Then it's got carbohydrates that break down the sugars that we've talked about. It also has lipases in it. So it does the yeoman's job of making the digestive enzymes for us.
What is pancreatitis?
That is an infection in your pancreas.
Okay.
Yep, just like hepatitis, pancreatitis, same. Okay? All right. So the acini cells are making the digestive enzymes. This portion inside is called a pancreatic islet. The pancreatic islet is endocrine. This is going to make the hormones. So we get exocrine to make the digestive stuff that we send through a duct into the duodenum. The endocrine part is going to go into the bloodstream, and it's going to affect our blood sugar levels. This is how we're going to maintain our blood sugar levels from this. The pancreatic islet produces insulin, which y'all have heard, and glucagon. Okay? Glucagon is what elevates our blood sugar. Insulin is what decreases our blood sugar levels. So that we want to hold it at about 100, okay, around 100 milligrams per milliliter of sugar. Okay? So, when my wife got West Nile, these are the cells that were attacked. Okay? Her body did an autoimmune response to it, killed these cells, so now she produces no insulin whatsoever. So she has to have that little gizmo on her side that injects the insulin based on what she tells it, based on what her blood sugar levels are. Okay? And she wears a monitor 24/7 that tells her what her blood sugar is. And right now it's kind of high, 234. Okay? She's supposed to be 100. Okay? So, and it lets me see how well she's done, and y'all can see she got really bad up here when it was almost 400. Okay? And it got down to about 100 at one point. So, she's constantly having to monitor it herself. Okay? So, very important organ, an organ that a gland that we can't live without, the pancreas. Okay?
So is hypoglycemia the opposite of diabetic?
Not having enough sugar in your system.
Okay.
And there's people that go too low. Okay? Or they don't eat enough in the morning. A lot of times my mom was that, where she needed to eat something to make sure her blood sugar levels stayed up.
Can it affect you the same way? Because they said my
Usually
grandmother
just-
was hypoglycemic and she's fainted like 3 times.
Yes, that's what happens. The blood sugar gets so low, your body doesn't do real well with it.
And if it gets too high, can you have like the same symptoms?
It's not really more fainting. You feel very, very jittery, a lot of sugar, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And you can go into a coma. So,
Does this play a role like in gestational diabetes for
can be.
women?
Yep, because remember you're putting on extra blood. That's where the problem becomes, is the volume of blood becomes more of an issue.
Okay.
Becomes more what?
The volume of blood, remember when you're carrying around a little cletus, the fetus, you put on extra blood to take care of the oxygenation and the nutrients for them. So that affects people, how much sugar they carry and that kind of stuff in there. They call it gestational diabetes.
So
Okay.
once you like eject the baby or whatever.
Eject, good. Not birth that baby, eject
I don't know
it.
why that's.
What's your
Once it's like out of your body or whatever, does it like go back to normal?
A lot of
being
times it will, yeah.
gestational?
But
Okay.
sometimes in the second baby, you're much more apt to get it again, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
Okay, the last one is the liver, once we see those parts. So make sure when you're looking at the pancreas, you can identify what cells are the Acini cells and know that they secrete the digestive enzymes, and know which ones are the islets.
So how do you know them from the, what's the difference? How do we know
They
them
look-
from the microscope?
They look different, and that's what I've got it on the pointer. I got a pointer on an islet, and you can compare it to
Okay,
the
so you wrote the
Acini cells.
name by, you wrote the name of what we're gonna see by the side of the slide.
I showed you my cards I need for y'all.
You love us, you know.
I know. Okay, so the last one is the liver. Liver produces bile for the digestive system. Now, it does a ton more than that, but from our standpoint in lab, all that we're gonna talk about really is bile production in the liver itself. So the cells that are gonna produce the bile are called hepatocytes. So when you look at the liver, it looks uniform. Everything looks the same because it's just full of hepatocytes. There's no differences in the cells that are there like we see these islets versus Acini cells. Liver looks like liver, okay? And just know that it produces the bile, okay? And then we're going to dissect on kitty cat today, okay?
How about the
We're gonna do the respiratory system and the digestive system. And on the test, there probably will be a couple of questions from both of those on it. It'll take up a spot. I'll probably have it on a cart where there could be maybe 6 questions on the counter, but not any more than that. Okay? Okay.
So the bile, what is the function of the bile?
Bile is what's going to emulsify the fat. So it's going to turn big fat droplets into little bitty BB size, little tiny pinhead size droplets. And that's going to allow us to that's going to increase the surface area. If it's this versus 1 million of these little BBs inside of here, there's a lot more surface area with it. So those enzymes that are water soluble can then attack it a lot easier if they're all spread out.
So if you're like super sick and you get to the point where you're like throwing
up the bile.
Mhm. Can you also throw stomach acid and like burn your throat?
People that have eating disorders that force themselves to throw up, a lot of times it will do damage to their esophagus, burn. And it actually can cause those tissues, people that have GERD, the reflux disease, that just means a lot of times you have a leaky valve there at the cardiac sphincter. So when you lay down, could that leak acid into your esophagus just by laying down? Yeah. So they have these people make sure that they've got one of those triangular pillows that they sleep on, or you lift the bed, okay, and you end up sliding down at the end of the night. You're down in the foot of the bed and that kind of stuff.
Can they fix it, like a leaky valve? Like
Yeah, they can go in and fix it. A lot of times it will heal itself if you give it enough time. But and there's medication. Y'all have heard of the little purple pill Nexium. That was a commercial for a long time.
Prilosec too.
Prilosec's another good one. Those are proton pump inhibitors, PPIs. So remember how pH works. It's the number of hydrogen ions in solution, right? Which are just protons, right? So in the stomach, if you inhibit it releasing the acid, that's inhibiting the proton pumps working. You don't get as much acid. You don't get that level. Okay, so that's what those do. They stop the production of as much acid.
Would that have side effects with affecting digestion?
It can. You're still going to produce some acid though. So, but yeah, it can affect things. But there's so many enzymes and all that kind of stuff that happens. I don't think it's been a big deal. Not much side effect that way.
depends on how long you take it too.
Yep. And then that becomes the new norm. So you kind of go back to producing a little bit more of it. That kind of stuff. Your body gets used to it.
So my dad, he had a hole in his esophagus. It was like really little. Was that caused by the acid going back up? Because he suffers from really bad heartburn and has for years.
Yeah, it can. It's like having it's like an ulcer in the esophagus.
Okay.
All right. Y'all take some pictures, and how about at 11 o'clock, let's dissect the kitty cat. Okay? take the pictures, get everything down, and we'll, open up this cat.
Are you taking a picture of that?
You can take a video of the cat, that's even better.